So let me get started. My name is PJ. I work at a company called Mattermost, and I'm here to talk to you about ChatOps when it matters. So a little bit about me. I'm from Buffalo, New York, which means I'm based like Adam. I'm basically Canadian. I did have Tim Hortons for breakfast. So, I mean, it's pretty much the same thing. There's really no difference. I'm a developer and community advocate. The company is called Mattermost, which is a communication platform that allows for a bunch of different collaboration techniques that can be used online, in the cloud, or behind the firewall. It's all about how you want it. It's very customizable. Think of like a Slack or a Discord, but it's open source, which means you can add what features you want and build any that aren't readily available. And in this role, I get to do a bunch of cool things like come and talk to you and work with the DevOps community, which is awesome. So before we get started, I wanted to start with a lot of definitions. I think that when you're doing a talk like this, especially in the DevOps community, you want to make sure that everybody's using the same vocabulary, that we're all kind of starting on the same page. So let's start with some definitions to get us started. So ChatOps. For those of you who don't know, the term ChatOps was actually coined at GitHub. It's kind of the idea of managing your systems through a chat interface. It was a way of thinking and working, not necessarily a tool or a framework. It was just kind of an idea that they had to automate a few systems before DevOps was even really a huge concept. They did this through bots, which I think is like the worst misnomer in this whole thing. They're not really robots. They're not really going to do stuff. What they really are is kind of messaging protocols. But because they're automated, we call them bots. It's one of those things that has started so long ago, we can't change it now. We're in trouble. What are we going to do? But anyway, ChatOps started at GitHub, and the idea was to automate messaging so that when things started to go wrong, we could see more information. I feel like this is a weird thing to give a definition for, but it's also kind of important. According to the strict definition of DevOps, it's a concatenation of development and operations, a method that emphasizes collaboration between the entire spectrum of professionals involved in creation, development, and deployment of software. And we all know this definition, but it's like a bit utopian, really, isn't it? Like today, we think of DevOps as a set of behaviors and tools that allow a team to function. This idea differs a little bit from the agile mindset, which focuses on the ability to move a project along a flexible timeline, which can be subject to change depending on feedback. As a result, agile is small, fast, and open to change, but it's mostly focused on the software development cycle. DevOps looks beyond that, and that's really what we focus on, getting everyone working together, especially when it comes to ChatOps, because we're really looking at things like incident response and incident management. So let's talk about some of the things that bring DevOps and ChatOps together. Integrations are one of the biggest things. So let's talk about what an integration is. So this is any piece of code used to connect different pieces of software or to communicate states between functions of different applications. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a piece of software in and of itself. It could just be a message that goes over and says, hey, this is completely relevant based on what happened yesterday. Hey, US East is down. Your doorbell doesn't work. Your vacuum cleaner is no longer functional. Sorry, US East is down. That's all the message has to say. But that is an integration between the two pieces. This can come in a lot of different forms. And while that original definition of ChatOps was focused on bots, integrations can mean all kinds of things: webhooks, APIs, slash commands in your chat forums and things, and other features that integrate various applications and workflows. Anything that brings anything together essentially is an integration. If you have one thing and it's not talking to the other thing, you build an integration to bring it together. It meets in the middle. So let's talk a little bit about incident response, because this is where the what matters portion comes in. The idea behind incident management is to be ready. Not ready for anything. That is kind of an unrealistic expectation, but ready to respond when the unexpected inevitably happens. DevOps teams create playbooks, incident playbooks, and go through scenarios in order to ensure they're as ready as they possibly can be to handle situations as they arise. Incident response is 100% about preparedness. It's not about what happens when the stuff hits the fan. It's about what you do when the stuff hits the fan and how prepared you are when the stuff hits the fan. That's a lot of bull stuff. And this is where this talk really gets started. So we're looking at the importance of communication when everything goes sideways, when least expected. And it's a little bit about why least expected is a loaded term. It's kind of cheating. Communication. This is where it all begins. Communication is actually the most important tool in your DevOps toolbox. Don't let anybody ever tell you different. So first, we'll talk just briefly about observability. According to Rudolf Kaufman, the man who coined the phrase, observability is a measure of how well internal states of a system can be inferred from knowledge of its external outputs. Whew, that's a mouthful. Clearly, this is a definition that was developed from an understanding of engineering complex machines. And I don't mean, the new MacBook M1. I mean machines where moving parts were internal and the dynamics could only be figured out or monitored via extrapolation, like a car engine. If you leave, the hood closed, the bonnet closed, you just assume the thing is running and everything is fine as long as it continues to move forward. If you were to think something went wrong, you would have to extrapolate out of that because most of us probably don't know how to take an engine out of a car, and that's okay. So we have, in the DevOps world, we have monitoring methods and tools that are so sophisticated now, and they're more widely adopted to handle increasingly distributed and complex systems. And while that's easier to observe code and we have tests and we can extrapolate that behavior, all bets are off when the code hits the real world, right? We have no idea how our users are going to use the things that we build. And that's okay. Having an observability setup is our first step towards good ChatOps and good incident response. It's key. If we don't know what's going on in the system, the only way we're going to find out is when the user inevitably picks up the phone or starts to write a sternly worded email explaining that they are down and now their vacuum cleaner doesn't work. What the heck is going on? The next thing we have is information. So you'll hear a lot of in the observability world, especially this live system observability about it being data-driven and iterative process for teams to improve the overall health and resiliency of systems. That sounds great. That sounds awesome. Sign me up. But what observability is really about is mitigating the issue of live system observability. It's like at the top of the heat. Every modern company wants to figure out how to do this. How do we do it in real time? And real time is like the biggest lie in all of observability. Let me tell you, there's no way you can get the information, get the error, process the error, work on the error, fix the error, and do all that, in a realistic, minute amount of time. These things take time. So we need successful tools. We need really well-trained DevOps practitioners. We need teams of people who understand. We need security ops. We need straight up systems administrators and everyone else to have some insight into how the system functions as close to real time as we can. And different tools do different things. There's the Elk stack, which is great, but you have to maintain it and it's kind of cantankerous. But once it's up and running, and if you could keep it up on the most latest build, then it's great and it'll tell you exactly what you need, but you're also still anywhere from 4 to 5 seconds to 30 to 60 seconds behind when you get that signal. And there's things like Humio and Splunk that will be able to tell you on a more timely time frame, but it's still 3 or 4 seconds. That doesn't sound like a lot, but it depends on how many users you have. It could actually be quite a large amount of time. And they're trying to build these things to scale linearly and efficiently store data so that users aren't wasting their time with compute resources just to figure out that something's down. So that's kind of how the information gets passed. So when we start to build integrations, it's kind of important that these things become tightly coupled. That can't be stressed enough. We as humans, we appreciate a good integration. We prefer when things work together socially. If you think about it, like this meetup is kind of an integration. It brings a bunch of different disparate parts together for an hour and a half to talk about things that they have common interests. So we're all communicating different things here. So why would that be different when we communicate as a team at work? The most interesting part of the tool set used to implement kind of DevOps philosophy is the whole idea that communication is important, is the use of these integrations. Like I said, they're very simple bits of code or very simple tools that just send messages back and forth to let us know. The tools here are well known. We have everything. We have Mattermost, we have Slack, there's HipChat, there's IRC. These are communication tools that keep the moving parts working together. It's one central repository for your entire team to see what's going on. You don't have to have everyone constantly watching, the observability board, the whole, the VNOC or whatever you have to keep an eye on your system. That's not necessary. You have one place where all that information is going to be delivered. Everything from we just kicked out a build to US East is down again, because it probably is. I mean, just do the math. It probably is. But that fosters that communication that is really key. That's what feeds our DevOps. The other tool you have in the tool set is chaos. And this is like a concept that jars a lot of the minds of the people in DevOps, especially people that came from a developer background. So are we really going to ditch half of the production servers at peak times just to find out what'll happen? Are we going to drop databases randomly? Yes, because if you want to prepare for the worst, you need to be prepare for everything. Not everyone is as comfortable with this way of doing things. Chaos engineering is still a relatively new concept, even though it's been around for years. Netflix and larger companies have been doing this for a long time. But the idea is to make our systems more resilient, to see how our messages are coming through and how our integrations are working. That's really the key. Everything needs to work together. Everything needs to be communicated. So putting everything together makes it that much easier to stay focused on resolving an issue. Integrations create an automated feed to bring information from one system to another across our entire workflow. And a central chat platform, maybe Mattermost, keeps everyone on the team on the same page. Creating playbooks based on chaos engineering experiments kind of allows you to be prepared for the worst. Keeping a decent observability stack together with a great communication setup makes ChatOps work for your team, and your organization is able to be successful. Whether it's the ad hoc response team for an incident, or there's a dedicated SRE team who works in your organization, and you're all using the DevOps Command Center that Mattermost has recently set up, having it all in one place is the key to success. You need to do it. It's absolutely necessary. If you have disparate things and no one knows what to do in time of emergency, you have created panic, and that is not good. So with the time I have left, let me give you a few best practices. And I know a lot of people say best practices. These are my best practices. Focus on what works in your organization and what works for you. Not everything that I say will be 100% exactly what you need. So when it comes to ChatOps, when it comes to integrating ChatOps, step one is start small. Automate one task. Find a single task, a simple task, preferably something that has nothing to do with a critical system. It'll take some time to learn what is working and what's not. And, you want to ensure you're building bots and integrations that function before you jump into building something your team and company are able to depend on. And this place dependency is actually a good thing. I know some talks, I've seen them at various DevOps Days events and things like that. People say, oh, ChatOps, all the things, put bots on all the things, all the bots, all the chat bots. Don't do that. There's also been a lot of talks coming out lately about alert fatigue. And that is true on your DevOps team every day. If you're seeing something that's warning you that US use is going down every day, which it probably is, eventually you're going to start ignoring that, so that when things really start to be affected, you don't take the action that's necessary. So start small. Also, start in your comfort zone. Not everyone who is a DevOps engineer on the DevOps team has a degree in programming or a CIS degree, or even has ever written code before. They're focused on systems administration. They're great at troubleshooting. I've known SREs that couldn't write a lick of Ruby, but were working on giant Ruby on Rails apps. Just for an example. So if you're a pure DevOps engineer and you've been focused on functioning backend systems for quite a while, don't expect that you're just going to start coding integrations because you know the domain. You'll need to learn some coding skills and some integration skills first. That said, you know your systems. So as you get started, stay within the parameters of your knowledge. As you build and learn more, you can get more experimental. You can have some fun. But to start off, stay where you are most comfortable. Figure out what needs to be fixed on a small scale and what you can easily write code for. Automating tasks. We love automating tasks. This is the best part of DevOps. This is what everybody wants. This is our goal. Automating ourselves out of jobs. Just kidding. Automating tasks on demand means as we get comfortable and as we see the value of the integrations we're building, so we started small, but now we can start looking at ChatOps when new things arrive. So there's a change in the build, or there's a new tool available, new monitoring software comes out, and that can be brought in, and all that can be automated. We can start messaging on that, and maybe start retiring some of the things that we had in the beginning, or improve the older integrations as new applications become available. Figure out what works best for your team. And one of the key things is, remember that ChatOps isn't just for the DevOps team. When we were building the Incident Response Manager at Mattermost, we had some folks in beta, because you always have folks in beta, right? And a lot of these folks realized this integration went far beyond the DevOps teams. It was great to build ChatOps bots for stand-up. It was wonderful to have things like asynchronous tasks, especially right now when everyone's working remote. The automation made it possible to get buy-in from teams, no heavy lifting, and it allowed managers to keep track of activities that they weren't expecting to. We even had one person beta who used it to track their budget. They had it tied into their financial software, and it sent messages whenever deposits or withdrawals were made. And they were able to keep track of their AP and AR that way. Like, that's crazy. We built this as a DevOps tool, but remember, communication is not just a DevOps issue. It's an everyone issue. Communication is everything. So without a guide, none of this is worth the code that it's written in. None of this is worth the time that I even took to talk about it. Build a playbook. Build a playbook. If you're not sure how, the people at PagerDuty have some great resources on how to build a playbook and how to deal with incident response. I don't work for PagerDuty. I just think they built a really good product. And even beyond the product, the things they do to teach the community about incident response is amazing. So incident response is where everything is going to come together. You're either going to hit the wall or you're going to hit a home run. That's an American slang term for winning. Either way, you're going to learn, and you're going to have a log of what was successful and what wasn't. Don't expect that the first incident that comes up is going to run so smoothly you'll be able to brag about it and start writing blog posts about how great you are. That doesn't work that way. This is learning. This is learning that can't be understated. This is where learning comes in, and it's key. You're learning from every event that occurs. Have a playbook. It's the only way to ensure success to the highest degree possible. So putting everything together. Putting everything together in Mattermost is much easier when you need to stay focused on resolving an issue. The idea here is that, community starts with the individual. ChatOps starts with the individual. I'm a community worker, so a lot of my quotes go with the community. But plugins create automated feeds to bring information from systems across your workflow all together in one place. A central chat platform keeps everyone on the team on the same page. Whether there's an ad hoc response team for an incident or a dedicated SRE team, doesn't matter. This is the key to success. Build your ChatOps. Make sure that they're there in emergencies and even when you don't need them. Make sure that you build the things that you need for your team. Innovation drives us to build better technology. We want to be part of innovating teams. We want to build better and safer, more observable systems. Communication is the key. It's the number one tool in your DevOps toolbox. I can't say that enough. And adding things like Mattermost and good ChatOps integrations to your DevOps tool set also helps facilitate that better communication. And with that, thank you very much. I'm happy to take any questions.